to learn how to construct something called a histogram. Histogram. Okay, I can tell you what histogram look like. The histogram look like there is an x-axis or the horizontal axis, and there is a y-axis or vertical axis, and both there's some label here. You have to say what is this, and it usually comes with unit or something. But this is either frequency or relative frequency, so that's a histogram. And they have some bars to show, okay, to show what the data look like. And this is your class, okay, and this you're going to label that as either frequency or relative frequency. Okay, so if you see something look like this, then that's called a histogram. So let's go back to our example we have earlier, and then we're going to see how do we construct a histogram based on the data we have. So we have this class width. Remember, we have this class. All right. So this that's the IQ. All right, so that's the IQ score. And our lowest class is from 55 to 69, and the next one is a 70, and the next one is 85, and so on. So I'm going to label here the midpoint. Do you remember how to get the midpoint? P-O-I-N-T. How do you get the midpoint of this? Remember, it's a 55 plus a 69 and divided by 2. So I'm going to put a 72. And the next one, 80 to 84, halfway is a 77. So I'm going to put here 77. There's another way, is you just label the whole thing as 50 to 69. That is totally fine with me. And the next class, you're going to label that as 70 to 84. And then the next one, you can just label that 85 to 99, or you can put 92 here. Either way, I don't mind. Whatever you put there is fine. All right, so that's 92, and the next one is going to be 107 if I use that. So there'll be 122, and the last one is going to be 137. Okay, so that's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 classes, and here I'm going to construct a frequency histogram for frequency. Then I have to have this. I probably should call that a bar, or I call this box, or the height, or the height of the box or height of the bar should be the same as the frequency for each one. So I look at this, I say, oh, the minimum number is 1, the maximum is 15. So I probably put here's a 0, and here is a 5, 10, 15, like this. Okay, so that covers everything. Then let's do it. So the first one, the first class, the height is 1. So here's a 5. So 1 must be somewhere just around here. As a habit, I always put the number on top, just in case people don't believe my drawing. The second one is a 6. 6 is somewhere here. Did you see that? This bar or this box, just one next to another, they're connected. All right, now the next one is 15, which is right here. So that goes to here, and I put a 15 on top, and the next one is a 3. I believe it would be something like this, 3, and then next one is a 4. To make sure that it looks nice. All right, and the last one is 1. That's it. That's your histogram. If you like, of course, you like to shade that, you shade each bar. That's totally fine. Make it look pretty. All right, so this is called a histogram. It's not bad at all, right? And so this is the histogram for frequency, or frequency histogram. You can also do relative frequency, and guess what? You're gonna have, again, you're gonna have the IQ here, which is the same, IQ here. So you're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 classes. Of course, you can choose the label 72, 77, 90, 62. I keep doing this. 62, 77, 92, 107. Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The last one is 137. Okay, and IQ. And here I have to label that as relative frequency. And for relative frequency, if you look at this, the maximum number is 0.5. The lowest is just nothing. So here it will be, excuse me, so here's 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and a 0.5. Sorry. And then I'm going to do, the first one is a 0.033, so it's going to be somewhere about 1/3 of that. And the second one is 0.2. Okay. The next one is 0.5. And the next one is 0.1. And then 0.1333. And the last one is 0.0333. And of course, if you like, you can write here 0.5, 0.2, 0.0333, and here's a 0.1, 0.1333, and here's a 0.3333. By doing this, you finished your relative frequency histogram for that. Here. Okay, so that's what you should know. However, if you look at this, do you see that they have the same pattern? It could just go from low and higher to the maximum and go down and up a little bit and then down again. So the histogram for frequency and for relative frequency should have exactly the same shape. The only difference is the Y column or the vertical. It shows a frequency and a relative frequency, so you have different numbers labeled and everything, but other than that, your x-axis are exactly the same, the shapes are exactly the same. So that is the histogram you should know. There's something more we didn't really touch, and I won't test you. However, they did mention that it's called a normal, assessing normality. I just quickly go over this because usually right now not many people do this by hand. They always do that with computer software. The assessing normality, I don't really understand why they put it here in this chapter, but however, I just want to mention that you're going to see the result look like this. There should be a line, and if have the dot goes along this line, that means your sample data. Here's your sample data. Sample. So that means this is normal. Okay, but if you have something looks like this, there's a line, but your data looks like this, then that's not normal. We don't ask you to do this by hand. And there's something else. Even it's very close to a linear, but there is another very clear pattern looks like this. It goes up and down. That's not normal. So I think the only thing I ask you to know is this, just by looking at this picture, then tell me whether you think it's a normal distribution or not. But I don't ask you to know how to do it, and we are not going to touch this in this chapter. We probably will do this later. All right, so I think that's all for the histogram. It's not hard. We'll talk a little bit more about a histogram. What do we care, or how do we interpret, and what can we tell about the data just by looking at the histogram? And if you remember, we have the histogram looks like this, right? There's like a line and a line, and a line bars, and so on and so forth, like that. Okay, so if you have something looks like this, what can you tell? You can tell the distribution looks like pretty much symmetric, isn't it? So it's a symmetric or not, symmetric or not. And number 2, where is the center of data? Where's the center of data? If it's a symmetric, the center will be somewhere just right in the middle. All right. And the other one is called a dispersion, or we call that spread out. I think there's a couple of words people use, or we say the shape. Shape. So is that bell shape? Bell shape looks like this. Okay. Or a uniform, which means, okay, so that means you have some distribution looks like pretty much the same. Okay, all right. I think that's about it. Or there's some others. Okay, so you just put others. Let's see, you might have something looks like this. Okay, that's very strange though. So that's a shape. And something else. Okay, we want to know there's outliers. If you have all the data here and suddenly you have one number right on the right, so that is the outlier. So is there any outlier? At the same time, we talk about is there any gap? Yes. Sometimes the distribution looks like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then goes here. So there's like obviously there's a gap here. All right. And the other thing is about this. If it's not symmetric, there are two words for it. They call that skewed. Okay, or skewness. Okay. So if the distribution looks like this, or this, they're different, isn't it? Can you see? So this one, the center is towards to the lower side, and you have a long tail on the left, on the right, and this one, the center is pretty much on the higher end, on the higher side, and you have a long tail on the lower value part. So how do we call that? We call this is skewed. When we describe that, we call this a skewed to the right. Or we call this as positively skewed. This one we said this distribution or this data skewed to the left or negatively skewed. It is so hard to remember, just remember this. However, there's a way to remember is to think about your toe, the shape of your toe. Your skewed to the right, your right foot, and that's your toe. I guess it looks like this. Is that right? You see the shape of the toe? It goes up and then down slowly. So this is a skewed to the right, and your left. I think I don't know. Did I draw this? Is nice. It's better. Okay, see the shape of the toe of your left foot is very similar to this. So this is called skewed to the left. So that's a right foot, left foot. So that's an easy way to remember. All right. So I think that's all you need to know, like how to describe a histogram or distribution.